It's Cageside with John Morgan.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon. UFC was in Shanghai this past weekend. If you woke up at the butt crack of dawn, you were going to be able to catch it live. I was able to catch a lot of the main card live. We'll get into that. Some little controversy with an illegal knee. We'll dive into that. I'll give you my perspective as a referee. But something I really want to get into is the Raja Jackson situation. To help me get into it, let's bring in the man. His name is on the marquee. You can follow him on X, John Morgan _MMA. John, did you see this Raja Jackson video?
Of course. How could you not? I mean, this is the biggest story, I would say, in the mixed martial arts world right now. I said UFC Shanghai, some things to talk about, but this thing took over everything because it involved, you know, the son of a legend. Obviously, Quentin Rampage Jackson, one of the most respected athletes in the history of the sport. I mean, what he accomplished is amazing. A superstar, a great fighter. So when you had that ties to a legend like that, obviously it's going to get elevated. But then you just had the jarring nature of this whole situation. Just, you know, and the idea is it a work? Is it a shoot? What happened? I mean, so absolutely saw the video. I don't know how you could avoid it. It crossed over into the mainstream. This went beyond a mixed martial arts story. It went beyond a sports story. This became a mainstream story.
We will get into that. Now, I have somebody very special lined up. We're going to bring them on here in a minute to help talk about it. What I am perplexed at right now, though, is that while they work something out, somebody is severely injured, in critical condition from what I've heard, right? Broken face, knocked out teeth, lacerations, you know, probably severe blunt force trauma to the head. How Raja has not been arrested yet is kind of perplexing to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be pretend to be a legal expert by any definition, so I don't know what the process has to be. But it seems to me when you have something on live footage with multiple camera angles that's being shared around social media everywhere, that's been written about on every site whatsoever, that there would be an arrest made in pretty short order. I don't know what the process is for having that done, but I don't believe this ends without criminal charges. And look, I'm not sitting here trying to convict somebody off the top. There's a lot of questions to be asked. There's a lot of things how did this unfold? How does the whole thing work? There's a lot to talk about when it comes to it. But I just don't see how at least the police haven't gotten involved at this point to at least pick up the man and question him about what happened. It seems a bit weird to me.
It is a little bit weird to me. I think there's rabbit holes that we can go down on this, and I want to go down on them. I want to go down them rabbit holes. Let's say that. I want to go down those rabbit holes because, like, listen, I love wrestling. I'm an MMA. I'm so passionate about MMA. This is where these two worlds collide. They collide a lot in the promo aspect. They collide a lot in, the crossover fan aspect. And even we see guys like King Mo, he's done the crossover. We've had multiple guys do the crossover. And now on a smaller level, it looked like there was this crossover appearance with Raja Jackson. Now, mind you, I refereed his pro debut.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you that?
No, I did not know that. That's why I knew how close this story was. Obviously, this is a Memphis story. This is a national story, but it's a Memphis story. But I didn't know that Eric McMahon had been there from the start.
Yeah, so Raja Jackson in the Ultimate Fight League, UFL, I reffed his pro debut. I believe I stopped at first round TKO victory for Raja Jackson. But yeah, and and he wasn't even that good at like a post-fight interview. His dad had to Rampage got in the cage and kind of talk to him, which I don't want to talk about intelligence level or anything, but take that for what it is. But let's just kind of go down these rabbit holes because I've got somebody waiting to come in. He has knowledge, maybe not about this specific instance, but the type of promotion that's going on, the level of the guys that were there, and how the inner workings of something like that and how it could even possibly happen. So let's go ahead and bring him in. And now we are joined by none other than Dustin Five Starr. Now, to give everybody a little background, Dustin Starr is the in-arena MC for the Memphis Grizzlies, one of my really good friends. But on top of that, to add a little insight into this Raja Jackson situation, Dustin has intimate knowledge of the wrestling business. Dustin was a WWE under WWE contract for approximately 2 years. He wrestled in their developmental system, became a referee, but pertinent to this conversation, Dustin is the owner, trainer, and promoter of Memphis Wrestling, and Memphis Wrestling has a few WWID prospects on their roster, which is essentially the WWE IDing guys that could be the next wave of talent up. And it is a very similar promotion to Knokx Pro Wrestling, where the Raja Jackson incident took place. Now, before we get into it, Dustin, did I get all that correct?
Yes, you're very, very close. WWE ID has labeled Knokx Pro like they're one of their official WWE ID training facilities. There's only a couple. Booker T has one in Texas, Reality of Wrestling. Seth Rollins has one. There's another one that I can't remember the name, but there's one other. And then Rikishi owns Knokx Pro. And conveniently enough, Rikishi was in Memphis with us all weekend when this happened, when this broke. It was crazy.
So with that being said, I gave you a call this morning because logically, I think the question has to be, as ridiculous as this is on its face to ask, that is there a plausible deniability that Raja Jackson says, I wasn't smartened up to this. I didn't know it was fake, and they told me to get in and do that. I understand that's the play that he is going to make in the legality sense of it, but does that hold any weight?
No, it really doesn't. And when you go, every show has a format or a run sheet or something like that. So I would imagine that there's got to be a format, or dare I say a script, where this was written down as it was supposed to happen. And usually, you know as well as I do, there's walkthroughs on things like this, especially at a place at Knokx Pro that's a WWE ID and it's a professional place and all that kind of stuff. They've been around a long time. I couldn't imagine that they didn't do a walkthrough. So, I mean, he's going to say that, but gosh, even Dave Meltzer said this was the worst thing that he's ever seen in the ring. And when I saw it, I actually got a text message at 1 a.m. We had 3 shows in a row, so you can hear it in my voice. But we were about to do our television taping with Rikishi, and I got a text at 1 a.m. that said that Raja Jackson, son of Rampage Jackson, had killed somebody at Knokx Pro. And I was like, oh, no. And so I click it, and of course I did a quick search and found out that he didn't kill him. At least we don't think. And so I immediately thought, oh no, I bet Rikishi's going to have to go back because that sounds pretty serious. We never did discuss it. It never came up. I wasn't, you worked with Rikishi, Eric. I was not about to bring it up to him. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but man, it was very egregious. I mean, 22 punches right to the face. I've never seen anything like it. I've seen guys get into it in the ring before, and I've even got into it in the ring before. But, to take this further, I did wrestle Matt Serra and Dean Thomas, 2 UFC fighters on Beale Street. It was Dana White looking for a fight, so you can go back and check that out. And, the guys were in the backstage area. We were going to wrestle each other, but they were doing the hokey fake wrestling punches. And I said, no, I want it to look like I'm going to try to take you down. So I literally grabbed them and showed them how snug and tight. And I just told them, whatever you do, out wrestle me, but please don't hurt me, because that's not what we do. And they were super cool. I even told Matt Serra, I am going to take you down. He's like, bullshit. And I'm like, I'm going to take you down, but please don't hurt me. It was very clear that we were not shoot fighting. And of course, Matt took me down. I couldn't get out and all that kind of stuff. So that was part of it. But I just can't imagine that he didn't know. And also where he was seated and where that camera was, this was obviously planned for him to make a run in. And then he just took liberties and knocked the guy out.
So let me ask a couple, maybe even sillier questions. But I have seen some people that are just like, guys, how are you falling for this? Like, this is the ultimate work. They have shown you up, man. They are that great as performers. I've seen the tape. There's nothing about that looks like it's fake or professional wrestling. I mean, that is a full-on assault. You are the expert, though, truly behind the industry. Do you even look at the tape and think there's any ounce of this is just an all-time great Oscar-worthy performance?
No way. Just the punches that he landed. I mean, in any UFC fight, that thing's over right off the jump, right? Eric's diving in there and getting the guy off. When I'm watching this, I'm just thinking, what is the ref looking at? The ref is right there. And I'm not pointing blame. I'm just saying there was definitely an opportunity for that guy to get pulled off a little bit earlier. You had guys run from the locker room to try to pull him off. And I think he even tried to leg dive them as well. So I don't know. I guess they'll say that he didn't, like I saw Rampage say that he's a MMA fighter. He should have not even been at a pro wrestling event. But Swerve Strickland, AEW superstar, said that maybe we should start gatekeeping professional wrestling again because there's so many celebrities. Like even on our level, we'll have local celebrities wrestle on our television program. Over the weekend, we had a principal at a high school turn on the coach. You know what I mean? So it's all part of it. But bringing people in that are inexperienced and may not know, which I don't know how that is, but may not know. It's interesting because they're not trained. They're untrained in the professional wrestling world.
So I want to take one step back from this because, man, I've traveled hundreds and maybe even thousands of miles on the road with you, 10, 15 years ago. When we're going to these independent wrestling promotions, you'd be like, hey, take a road trip with me. And I go, only if I can get involved. And I understand that this is all work. I understand it. And I just had a lot of fun with it. But we would go to these level of independent promotions that were
very low,
less than organized, very backcountry, right?
Yes.
Explain to us as we're second graders about where the level of independent wrestling that this show really was.
Oh, well, this being Knokx Pro and Rikishi and a WWE ID affiliation and everything, it's been in business a long time, very reputable enough for WWE to put their ID tag on them. Very prominent in California. Memphis Wrestling is not a WWE ID official school, but we do have WWE ID stars that are sent to us. Aaron Roberts was on the WWE ID program as well. So we recently had Rikishi's son who trained at Knokx Pro come in. So it's a high level, very high level of independent wrestling.
So there's
one of the highest actually, because there's only 3 or 4 that are under a WWE ID contract.
So with that being said, it's obviously not being produced on the level of a WWE, but it is being produced. And so there are, like, to that point, there are run sheets, there are choreographs, everything is, we know it's choreographed, but there is time slots for this stuff to happen. It's worked out prior to. So under us, the plausible deniability is just not there. We all know it was real, but there is in no scenario that they could not have said to Raja, hey, get in here and just whoop this guy up.
Man, there was a video backstage of a guy saying, go get your receipt. And a receipt in the wrestling business means that you get them good. That doesn't mean you don't do that. But if I'm going to go out there, I might stiff you. You might feel a little snug because I'm giving you a receipt for something that you did. I think before the show, there was a podcast or some sort of video where there was a beer can that was hit on his head. It looked like the whole thing was a work. They were just building up for that night. And then there was a scene, and again, I think it was behind the scenes, I don't know, but telling him, go get your receipt, telling Raja, go get your receipt. I think he even said, like, knock him out or something like that. Just whatever the verbiage was. You'll go back and watch the video. It's all over Twitter. And then that's the next video you see is him jumping up out of his seat. And it was obviously planned, but he had to have known that it's not real. He had to have known.
So to your point, because I'm new to this, to independent wrestling, there are like rehearsals or walkthroughs. It's not just like, hey, we're just gonna go in there and we'll figure this thing out. Because I understand, like at the WWE level, obviously there are camera shots and it's the ultimate rehearsal. But even at this level, there's at least discussion. It's not just like, hey, me and you, we know I'm gonna win, but let's just go in there and feel it out, and we'll see what happens.
Well, so those shows that Eric was talking about, the much lower level independent shows, we say, hey man, let's go out there and walk and talk, boom, bam, boom, and we just go out there and do it, right? But like on something like this, on a higher level, it's there's a card, there's probably a run sheet, there's times for however the matches are supposed to go. If there's any special notes, it's our show is minute to minute exactly what's going to happen all over that program. The rehearsals after our team meeting, hey guys, come on, let's go. And then we start producing the matches. So there is somebody, even if it's not a producer, there is a wrestler or somebody there that's helping put this match together. And there is usually a very clear especially for somebody that's new, it's very clear that this is not a shoot fight.
That's
So
great.
yes, they're on that level. There should be, if they're not walking it through in the ring, they're at least in the locker room saying, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do. Take you down, whatever."
Where does it stand? I mean, does it? I know this doesn't happen often. I can't imagine this happens, but I mean, is this ever happen? I mean, have you seen things like this? This just seems wild.
Every now and then there's somebody in the ring that would, be a little snug. You'd ask them to lighten up and they wouldn't. So you'd give them a good little shot and it's like, "Hey, all right, you ready to work?" And okay, and that usually ends it, or if something happens, it's in the locker room. If you go back and say, "Hey man, what was that?" And there's all sorts of WWE stories that happens on every level where there could be a little altercation behind the scenes or something, but something like that, just getting knocked clean out and it just continuing and continuing and continuing. I've never seen that. And like I said, Meltzer was one of the first to say it. Like, that was the worst he's ever seen.
Wow.
So I don't know what happens from here. I'm very curious as to how WWE will respond to this.
I mean, that's a very interesting point. But I do want to go. I always kind of,
you look up Knokx Pro, that logo is all over it. And everybody's looking up Knokx Pro right now because of this thing.
So I always want to go back to the work shoot aspect angle of it, because I do know the likely scenario that Raja and even Rampage is getting ahead of this and saying, "I hope it was choreographed," and some people like to do hardcore, right? And this is anything but that, right? But from a legal sense, I think it's going to be, just me personally, I think it's going to be hard to prove that he didn't know that it was fake. And being maybe not the sharpest tool in the shed, it's a plausible deniability. But then from a promotion standpoint, right? From a Knokx Pro or a Memphis Wrestling promotion, like, what type of liability do you think there is there from a promotional standpoint like that?
They have insurance for a reason, I guess. I mean, that's serious. Gosh, I would hate to even imagine that happening, something like that happening at Memphis Wrestling. Yeah. I heard the guy's in critical condition right now. I don't know. I don't know how to answer your question. I wouldn't even know. I would imagine insurance. And
have you personally ever seen something from what somebody did in the ring translate into criminal charges? Now, this is the extreme outlier. I understand that. But in your 20-something years in this business, have you ever seen anything in the ring go to criminal charges?
I don't think I have. And I've seen a lot of locker room fights too, and I don't remember any criminal charges from those either. So that's a really good question. I get hit in the head a lot, Eric, over the years. So I'm thinking, but no, I don't think so. I really don't think so. And it might, like you say, it might be hard to prove because it's TV. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe they told him to lay it in, because that's a term in wrestling. Sometimes when we're doing stuff, I'll say, "Hey, make sure you lay it in, make it look good." Maybe he laid it in and he was like, "Oh," and I think there's a video of him saying, my bad in the, in the parking lot area that the guy was hurt, my bad. So I have no idea. But there's so many different terminologies in wrestling, lay it in, get a little stiff. Hey, I'm not scared to get hit. That's probably what the guy would make it look good. And it's like, okay, don't worry, I will. That's a possibility too. I'm serious. I mean, I've had guys tell other guys, "Lay that in. When you hit me, hit me." So it's very possible, and like I said, with Matt Serra and Den Thomas, they were, doing the stomp punches and stuff. And I was like, no. It needs to look more real. So they might have even told him, make it look real. So there's a lot. We'll see what comes out. I'm sure that we're going to hear all about it.
From a standpoint, do you think that Rajah Jackson needs to be arrested? Do you think this is, just criminally insane? I look at it and I'm like, absolutely he does. Like, there's no way plausible scenario. He needs to be held accountable to his actions. But you know the business better than I do. We've all heard crazy stories. We've watched Dark Side of the Ring. We've done all these types of things. Do you think that this is going to go past the civil portion of it, because I can almost guarantee you there's going to be civil liability upon Knokx Pro. But do you think that there should be criminal charges based on your knowledge of the business and working with people who are outside of the business that get brought in? Do you think that there needs to be some civil charges on this or some criminal charges on this?
Actually, yeah, I do. I really do. If that happened at the Wrestle Center, I would be so disappointed. Yeah, you would have no choice but to call the police about that and press criminal charges. It's assault is what it is. It's a show. You went to a show. You were a part of the show, and then you literally assaulted somebody that put them in the hospital in critical condition, knocked multiple teeth out, almost killed him. There's no telling what's going to happen from that. So absolutely, yeah.
John, you got anything else for us here, man? We're in this weird paradox world of we're MMA guys talking to wrestling, and
it's so tough because you hate to see it. I think I've even asked you for Rampage Jackson's number previously to book him on Memphis Wrestling. We've had Butterbean knock somebody out at the desk on our Memphis Wrestling TV show, and it was very clear. All right, Butterbean, don't knock him out, but make it look good. And Butterbean was a true pro and did his thing. It got a couple million views for our Facebook page. So, but this is definitely a whole different ball game. Criminal charges, and it's very unfortunate. Yeah,
it is unfortunate. I think that's the way to frame it. You know what I mean? Because listen, I mean, Raja Jackson, we've dealt with unsavory characters throughout mixed martial arts, and we cheer it sometimes. We like the bad guy. We like violence.
He was booked. He was booked for a wrestling event, so he knew what he was there for. Like, it wasn't a secret. You know what I mean? Like, when you're booked for a pro wrestling event, you know that it's not an MMA fight. You're not. You can say that all you want if there's an argument, but I mean, he was booked for that spot. That spot was planned. There was a camera on him, the whole thing. So all of it was 100% of work. It's just like a tough guy beating somebody up in a wrestling match when that person is working. Like, I'm fake fighting, but you're really fighting. It's definitely that's assault.
Unfortunate. I tend to agree. I don't know obviously I'm no legal expert and I don't know what the punishment would be, but to pretend like it was just within the frame of normal wrestling and normal entertainment, whether it was premeditated, I guess, or whether it was just you snapped in the moment, maybe I don't know if that changes the severity of it, but either way, it's a criminal act, right? I mean, that's all that you can say about it.
I think the tell on all this is Raja didn't like being shown up earlier in the night, right backstage when they did the whole empty beer can thing, and he was like, and he clearly gave him a working shot, Raja, a working shot. Raja took great exception to that. This guy that I even watched the video and to all accounts profusely apologized and acted, are we good? Raja accepted his apology. Then it all leads to whatever happened in the ring. And I can't think that these guys are that great of storytellers that we understand that, hey, after something really bad happens, now let's backtrack and see the footage from earlier the night to make this all make sense. I don't ever see that as a possibility. Do you?
No, I feel like that's all the storyline. They did that to set up the spot. It's just like at a Grizzlies game when we do one thing so we can cake somebody later. I mean, they did that to set it up. And now maybe once they split apart, you've seen wrestlers fuel each other up like, hey, Eric, man, that guy hit you too hard. You need to get that back, and so who knows what happened at that point. But also, if I do hit you too hard, I would profusely apologize. Hey, man, my bad. Just letting the guy know that I acknowledge that I made a mistake. Then also, did Raja go with him to the hospital? Because I don't know that he went with him to the hospital. So I feel like that is another. And I might be speaking out of turn. I don't know that, but that's an interesting question there too, because if you're truly, if it's truly an accident or whatever he is saying, then where was he after that? It looked like he was in the parking lot finding out about it.
And I think the weird component to this is like, who was this cameraman following around Raja the whole time, even post the beatdown, right? Even post the assault, because now they're walking away and Raja seems completely unhinged and cutting a promo to this camera, but it's clearly what I think is real to Raja, but then they have a cameraman following him out. Now, it might have been Raja's own personal social media guy or this, that, and the other, but they're clearly still gassing him up on the way out.
Yeah.
Well, that's the live streaming, that's the thing now, right? To just get the views and get the clicks. And so you just keep it going, and you probably know you got something special at that point. You probably this is going to go viral, man. We're going to get big off of this, which is kind of just a terrible part of
already.
society.
Let's keep going.
Might as well. It's when I think it back, when I play it through, it's interesting, right? Because like the initial slam, I mean, we've talked about that. We just saw that recently in the UFC, Eric, right? Where like that is a dangerous maneuver, but it's not a 100%. Every time you do that, it's going to knock somebody out. Like, had he lifted him and slammed him, had he knocked him out and then just stopped and then been like, maybe he even flexes or whatever, then I think you could feasibly go, bro, I didn't know that. Like, I was just trying to slam you down. I thought it was going to look good.
Right.
I didn't know I was going to knock you out. And then I think you're absolved of all responsibility, right? It's like, damn, we were trying this and I'm so sorry. But it's those follow-up punches afterwards, right? Where there's like, come on, there's no question what's happening.
22.
That's a good point, because I was surprised that he got knocked out by the takedown, because that's a standard back bump in the professional wrestling business. It's almost like a spine buster that Triple H or Arn Anderson used to do, and you take the bump. Even if you do shoot on that, you tuck your chin and there's a way to take that bump. I was surprised that was what knocked him out. But you're right. Had that been it and he was knocked out, it could have been easily like, oh man, I'm sorry, it was a bad bump, But then, the 1, 2, and then he's clearly out, guys. And it is like one of the most disturbing things ever. And the dude is just getting waylaid. So yeah, I was surprised that he knocked him out with that takedown. But yeah, it was definitely the follow-up punches. You're exactly right.
So if we know you got, thank you for coming on, and we know you got to get going, but where would you see this going from here? Is WWE, do you think, a scenario of them pulling the ID from Knokx Pro? Do you think Knokx Pro is going to be, is this is going to severely hurt them? What do you think is going to happen to Raja? Just, you're more inside than we are. So I know we're all throwing darts in the wind here, but if you were to surmise, what would you say?
I can't imagine, man. I hate to bring bad karma on or say bad things, but I just feel like WWE would probably part ways. But that family is so intertwined. The Rikishi and the Bloodline and Jimmy J, Rock, and all them. It's gonna be a very difficult decision for WWE. I feel, because it's gonna have a lot of bad publicity. Raja is gonna be in some trouble, and that school will probably have to go through some changes, or whoever is like putting that together. Rikishi, I know, was not there because Rikishi was with us all weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So he wasn't even there. So whoever was there in charge, I think there would probably be some changes made at that school.
Well, Dustin, we appreciate you taking the time here to kind of walk us through, what is plausible and what is not in a scenario like this. And I think we're all in the agreement that Raja went into, as they say in the wrestling business, he went into business for himself.
Yes, that is a perfect way to explain it. He went into business for himself.
All right. Thanks, Dustin. We'll catch you on the flip side, brother.
All right. Thank you, guys. Next time we'll talk about something fun.
You got it. Man, I think that we may have just gotten probably the deepest dive that I've seen anybody get into this so far. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely, man. It was insightful, because I had a lot of questions, and you touched on some of the ones that I had. And fortunately, it was nice to be able to speak to an expert and ask them as well, because you just don't necessarily understand the inner workings of the business. I think one point that I thought was really interesting that he made was maybe the discussion about gatekeeping a little bit as to who actually gets involved in this stuff. And obviously you talk about that crossover. You want to bring the biggest stars you can. It's just like mixed martial arts, right? The bigger names you can bring in, but maybe there's got to be some process or whatever. Like, dude, look at what Logan Paul has done in the WWE, right? Like, that guy is incredible, man. He's done a fantastic job. Like, he has made himself so much more than a gimmick right off the top. I mean, he's doing it, right? But I don't know, when you bring somebody in for the first time, or, they don't necessarily go through extensive training. Again, we don't know exactly what unfolded here, or what happened, or what happened mentally in that moment. Again, was it premeditated, or was it just something that snapped? But, maybe it's not necessarily the safest for all the athletes and the entertainers involved to just bring people off the streets and assume that they're going to respect the craft, assume that they're going to understand and be an expert in it, right? I mean, it's I thought that was kind of an interesting discussion to maybe have, that there's there's a brotherhood, I guess, and a trust. There's really a trust that goes into it, right? When you go in there and work with somebody, you have to have faith and trust that they're going to take care of you as you go out there and have this performance.
I think what was most telling about how egregious and criminal in nature that this really was. I mean, I'll go out on a limb. This was criminal in nature. I don't ever see a scenario where he didn't know. Didn't know. I can see a lot of scenarios where he lost control.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but when Dustin was saying that the level of independent wrestling that this was Knokx Pro, it was a WWE ID affiliate of WWE, and that they have the run sheets, they have the production, they have the X, the Y, the Z, that there is, in his opinion, no plausible scenario that he didn't get smartened up to the business, and that there wasn't at minimum discussions about how to do this. Now, you could get lost in the legality sense of the terminology. Of course, you can get lost in that. I think it's a defense. I don't think it's legitimate, but it's a defense. But when he's saying, like, this isn't in the backwoods of Kentucky, like this was Knokx Pro, like the highest level of independent wrestling. The next step is the big show, WWE. And WWE even realized that this is such a high promotion that we're going to put our tag on this promotion, that there's no scenario that this was a work or that he thought it was a shoot or whatever terminology you want. He knew, he had to have known.
Well, and that is a great point, because to your point that you made, like, and again, I'm not somebody that cheers for people's demise. I mean, I believe very much in second chances, and I'm, kind of optimistic about people's futures and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not saying, lock the guy up and never let him see daylight. I'm not, but there's at least going to be a civil case here if there's not a criminal case. And I would assume that there are both. And I would assume the facts would come out and all that would be discussed. But yeah, that was educational to me, because I didn't realize that, kind of where this organization stood in the hierarchy. I assumed it was just a thing where, they're throwing stuff on in the backyard and it's me and you. And, again, like I said, I thought maybe, hey, here's who's going to win, but we'll just figure all that out on the way, on the fly. But to know that, no, not at this level. At this level, there would have been a discussion, there would have been a walkthrough, there would have been scheduling, there would have been all that. It's even more eye-opening to how wild this incident really was.
What I think is borderline scary is the temperament, and I kind of touched on this with Dustin, is like the temperament of Raja after the fact.
Yeah,
that was disturbing. Yeah, because if there was instant remorse, and boy, I thought that was great that he brought up about, hey, did he go to the hospital with him? And I don't think he did, but that would show something, right? That would show some instant remorse. You know what I mean? If you're like, hey, I knocked him out, and then I had to stay in character to continue the performance so that the crowd didn't get concerned or whatever the case may be. And so if you're in a court of law and you say, yeah, of course, you see me on tape continuing to act like I've lost control, but that was the act. But the second we got backstage, you know what I mean? I was with him. I didn't leave his side. I've actually been with his family in the hospital. I've continued to stay in contact with his family and to make sure that they're aware. You know what I mean? Like, I think there would be a way where you could say, listen, maybe even if you did lose control, and again, had it been just the slam, I think that's easy to walk away from and be like, bro, we've seen the slam a million times. We know it can happen. And the fact that your dad is Rampage Jackson, that's kind of crazy. You know what I mean? But if you look at the slam, it is almost surprising that it did knock him out. Like, it didn't look like it was, done with, it wasn't a spike or that sort of thing. But he didn't jump him. He whiplashed him down.
He did whiplash him down. So, but again, if you'd have just stopped at that point, I mean, even if you knock him out, you stand up, you flex, maybe you taunt him, whatever. I mean, you stay in character, and then you get out of the ring, and then again, like you said, you're with him backstage, and yeah, it's just I don't know I don't know what happened. And as you said, that incident, with the beer can or the smack against the head, I know there was some misunderstanding, but we've seen the footage, right? That they talked about it afterwards, and there was an apology, and there was, I didn't realize, etc. So I don't know what happened. I mean, it just looks to me like he lost control of the moment. I mean, he definitely lost control of the moment. Now, whether it was, he went in there with the intention of losing control, maybe even when you slam the guy and you knock out, maybe that snaps something in you. Like, I mean, how many times has Raja, watched that Rampage Jackson slam in his life. You know what I mean? Maybe that sent something off mentally or whatever, but you just can't do it. And again, and I know, Dustin touched on it a little bit as well, and how far do you go into it, but like somebody could have intervened a little bit faster than what they did, right? I know everybody's, playing their own role, so to speak, in the show and, letting things unfold, but surely somebody could have stepped in a little bit faster to stop what was going on.
There's this phrase that I always say when people are like, well, I wouldn't do that, or I would have done this. I said, never judge anybody's actions based off your own intentions, right?
Yeah.
I've watched that video dozens of times now in horror every single time, mind you. And I don't see people being like, I don't know what to do. I see fear on people's faces. I see fear. Like, you have this lunatic acting out of control. Like, and the one guy kind of tried to grab him at first. It looked like the referee was just like, a guy, if he were to intervene, he could have got killed himself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I say, like, yeah, I think I would have. I'm maybe bigger in nature. I would know how to, jump onto Raja's back or whatever. I would think that I would. But you have these guys that don't know that world, and they were like, we've never seen anything like this. And then it took one guy coming from the locker room being like, okay, this guy had to have a little institutional knowledge, because he jumped on Raja's back, pulled him off, and then we don't see the rest of this clip, but we see Raja shooting in on a double on this guy. And the guy actually sprawled. Yeah. On it. So it looked like he knew what he was doing. And that was the one guy who was able to do something about it. So it's unfortunate that people didn't stop it earlier, but I don't really put all that much fault on them. You know what I mean?
No, I think that's great that you pointed out like that, because I feel the same way. It's a little surprising nobody did, but you got to understand. And look, maybe they're even still mentally processing, what the hell is going on right now? Maybe it takes them a second. Because again, I did see a lot of people that are watching the footage going, guys, don't fall for this. Don't fall for this. And it's like, come on, man, this is obviously clearly very real. But maybe it took them a second. And to your point, maybe there was a little bit of fear there as well. Is they're like, dude, I'm not, like, I know who this guy is. Like, he's a professional fighter. Like, I'm not going in there to stop it. Like, somebody else will. And so I don't blame him either. It's just unfortunate that somebody didn't jump in a little bit faster, because, as we all know, with head trauma, it's not necessarily just the first blow. It's the repetitive blows that cause the further damage. And so maybe some of the damage could have been alleviated had somebody been able to jump in there a little bit earlier.
Well, and obviously we were really hoping and praying for the victim here that he makes a recovery. But we'll wait and see. I mean, this is not the end of this story. No, it's going to go on. And again, it won't be the end either, because, this has made national headlines now. And so people are going to stay involved in this. The mixed martial arts news cycle moves very quickly. And you got a lot of people that I've worked on staffs that don't have a huge team of people that are trying to churn out content all day, every day. And sometimes things just kind of move on and they get forgotten and they get swept under the rug. But with this being, making national headlines the way it did, I don't think this is going away quite that easy. No, we'll wait and see. I mean, who knows? By the time this podcast drops, who knows? Raja may be locked up. But, man, there needs to be some – I'm just going to say that. Like, I don't wish for people's demise either, but there needs to be some heavy accountability for what happened this past weekend. Yeah, and like you said, there's got to be some changes made at the organization too, I imagine, whether it be in terms of training or process or whatever, because there is going to be civil liability for this unfolding. Again, it was one man's actions and decisions, I guess, that you have to be held accountable for. But I imagine there'll be some accountability at the organization as well for how did you let this happen on your watch, basically. 100%. Well, there was a UFC event this past weekend as well. It was UFC in Shanghai. And Johnny Walker, much needed win, comes out, gets one, looks good. Little, am I going to give you a hand touch or not? And then shoots in on a double right out the gates. But anything of note, off this card, we will get into the knee air in a second, so we'll get there. Yeah, I mean, listen, as far as the main event goes, I mean, a much-needed win for Johnny Walker, right? As you said, the opening round didn't exactly go his way. I
thought it was great. The corner audio as they go back there, Eric Nixick, Johnny Walker's made the move to Extreme Couture in Las Vegas, and Eric Nixick after the first round just like, well, that was a round, wasn't it? Like, come on, man, what are you doing? You're doing Johnny Walker things, but then that perfectly placed leg kick. So big win for Johnny Walker. Much needed, obviously a dangerous guy in the division. I don't know that he's necessarily, locking himself up with any title shots or anything next, but a big result for him. And an interesting result for Zhang Ming Yang as well. I'll be interested to see what happens with the rankings. I had him at number 15 coming in. I actually took him out, put Dustin Jacoby back in at 15. This was kind of that moment to kind of break out for Zhang Ming Yang, and it didn't happen. But it wasn't a fight that he was fighting poorly. He was actually winning the fight, and then it just one nasty leg kick changed everything. So I still think that Zhang Ming Yang has a future. I do think there's bright things in his future as well. So an unfortunate setback for him in a big spot. So that was my thoughts on the main event. As far as the card as a whole, kind of just give some love to my man Kyle Daukaus. I mean, Kyle Daukaus, I just man, for that guy to make his way back to the UFC, I mean, to make it to the UFC and then to lose your contract, to be cut from the organization.
But the fighters he fought on that initial contract are crazy.
Oh, he fought some studs, you know what I mean? But to make your way back is not easy, man. You know what I'm saying? It's not easy. Mentally, it's a challenge. Financially, it's a challenge. And for him to do it, and to the whole time he was out of the UFC, he just kept saying, any fight that there was an opening, he would basically take to social media and say, put me in. And finally they said, all right, short notice, fly yourself to China, and face Michelle Pajeda, a very dangerous guy, and to go out there and knock him out, and to not only get a win, but to get a $50,000 performance bonus as well. I'm just telling you, I could not have been more happy for Kyle Daukaus and excited to see him get back in there. So, other things to talk about on the card for sure, but I just had to get some love to Kyle Daukaus. It was down on the prelims, but for the CFFC general manager, that was pretty exciting to see. And for anybody that knows Kyle Daukaus or has been around him, they know how dedicated and what a great guy he is. And so you just had to be happy for him to have this result.
Co-main event. Let's get into it. Aljo looked good.
Yep.
Right? Aljo was kind of Aljo, not the most exciting fighter in the world. But Ortega, very disappointing, right? And let's get into the weight cut first, right? This had to be made at a catch weight. And it was damn near scary watching their post weigh-in face-off. It looked as though Brian Ortega could barely walk.
And that's at 153 pounds. I mean, when you talk about a catch weight, normally a catch weight, they're supposed to be coming in at 145. Obviously, you get the allowance at 146. Somebody comes up to you and they're like, can we go 150? You're probably like, man, that's a lot. Like 150? What? 153? I mean, and to look like that at 153, yeah. And I am a Brian Ortega fan, man. I love some T-City, dude. But to look like that and be that far off from the weight that you're supposed to be at, man, it was hard to watch. Scary.
Yeah, it was scary. Getting into the fight, he just never got into gear. Essentially, it's the best way I can explain it. Maybe late he got in, he started feeling some urgency, he started going, but this is I had been riding Brian Ortega for a while, always saying he's that guy who may get battered, but he never breaks and he always finds a way. Right? I even picked him against Diego Lopez at the Sphere. And now he's coming off a string of losses and just didn't look good while doing it. I mean, plus the weight plus the weight cut. And we were saying, okay, well, we think he could have a striking advantage against Aljo. No. While he says he can beat him anywhere down on the ground, no, not even close. Now, maybe when he got a little bit desperate towards the end and he hit Aljo at the very, sent Aljo reeling a little bit, way too little, way too late. Where does a guy like Brian Ortega go from here?
Man, doesn't this feel like the kind of fight where you got to have some serious discussions with yourself about whether or not
100%.
you really want to do this or not? You know what I mean? That's what it looked like to me. Because that was the question.
Do we see him again?
I don't know. Really. Yeah, that I agree, because look, his ranking, I think, I'm interested to see where the rankings have him, right? Because he does have that win over Yair Rodriguez, which kind of keeps him at a certain position in the rankings. But I was just like you, right? Where even going into this fight, I was cheering for Aljamain Sterling all day, right? Again, I'm going to CFFC homer all day, right? Former CFFC champ, CFFC Hall of Famer. I was homering for Aljo all day. But I was telling people, look, if all you're looking at is Brian Ortega's record, it's easy to be like, well, come on, man, he's 2-4 in his last 6. But I was that same guy that's saying, yeah, but look at the Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski, Yair Rodriguez, Diego Lopez. I mean, yes, losses, but losses to the top of the top. So don't forget how dangerous this guy really is. But yeah,
and if he gets one opportunity, he takes it.
So, man, he's so dangerous with his grappling game, right? Even as good as Aljo is in the grappling game, like Ortega is just a little bit more dangerous. But man, this just looked like a guy that didn't want to be there. You know what I mean? And look, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, look, this is not an easy profession to have for a living. Like, it is stressful as all get out. It is hard on your body, but it's even harder on your mind. And if it's a thing that you don't want to be in there, totally understandable. Like, this is not a normal profession. Like, I get it. But that's what I think about this. When I look at it, I don't look at tactical errors. Obviously, maybe you look at, were there injuries? What was the issue behind the weight cut, et cetera? What was going on? But as you said, it's just when you never even get out of first gear, when you never even press, that's when you start saying, like, was there something physically wrong? Or was it a situation where, like, mentally you just weren't in there for whatever reason, whether it be that day, whether it be your career moving forward? But yeah, I think this is one of those type fights that, to me, you have to have a real serious discussion with yourself afterwards and be like, do I really still love doing this? Because if you don't love doing this, it is not the right thing for you to do.
Yeah, it's just kind of disappointing. I mean, I don't know what to make of it. I think there definitely has to be some soul searching on, do you want it or do you don't? Or, the age old question, do you want to be an Ultimate Fighter, as Dana White would say. But the knee, let's talk about it.
Got to talk about it, man. The Taiyilake Nueraji, I believe, is the proper pronunciation, over Kiefer Crosbie in the main card opening matchup. Illegal knee, and a lot of interesting things to talk about.
Big one. He takes a big one.
Yeah.
So Kiefer Crosbie takes a big knee. Now, let's set the stage. He was taking heavy damage up until that point. Elbow, elbow, elbow. He then essentially almost gets to his butt, sitting up, gets to his knees, and the shot is lined up. It is lined up, and it is delivered heavy. It's delivered heavy right underneath, I believe, his right eye. Actually, I think left eye. Left eye. Yeah. Right underneath his left eye, splits him open, and it is as blatant can get. I mean, there is egregious fouls, and there's not. And let's talk about, we get a lot of questions. I get this question a lot. When 1 and when 2 point deduction?
Yeah, because this was a rare 2-point deduction, right? You don't see that a whole lot. And there's discussion about, should it be done more? And there's the question about, hey, was this the right time to do it? Because it's not something you see frequently. Like, you don't see 2-point deductions frequently. But I think, and you can speak to it, I mean, this was a situation where it was warranted, and not only warranted, but I guess, called for and needed.
So before we get, we'll go over this now, and then we'll get to, do we think it was handled all properly?
Right.
Okay. We'll eventually get there. Because it did lead immediately. The immediate after effect was a TKO stoppage right after the restart. But now let's go to why 2 points instead of 1. And a lot of people are just thinking because it was worse, right? That's not how this goes. So depending on the foul, we're going to categorize it 2 separate ways. You have unintentional and intentional. Now, a lot of fouls that look intentional, I'm always going to argue that it's unintentional because it happens within a framework of a fight, right? So did I think he was getting up and his knee was already cleared? Was I already in the motion when something happened and I was framing on his head but I was in the motion really aiming for the chest, and then the knee went down. So I can always, in most regards as a referee, back end myself into saying, I cannot prove intent here, that it was malicious in intent and he intended to break the rule. I always say this to people. Like, listen, if somebody is down and they take one step and deliver the shot, I'm gonna err on the side that it was not unintentional. He broke the rule, but the intent was not to break the rule because it happened in a moment. It was a one step, boom, right? But now I always explain it this way. If you take 2 or 3, look at it, then deliver the shot, now we process that it was a violation of the rule and we still did it anyways.
Right.
Okay. That's how I usually will kind of define unintentional to intentional. Is it plausible that he didn't intend to break this rule? If it's plausible, I'm usually going to say it's unintentional.
Right.
Okay. Because so many things happen so fastly.
Yep.
This was not that. He was down the whole time. He almost held him down, was framing on him, and boom, delivered it. Therefore, it is an egregious foul, and it was an intentional foul. Now, here comes the 1 and 2 point deduction talk. Just because it's intentional does not mean it's a 2-point foul. And just like if it's unintentional, doesn't mean that there's no point. It all goes to the severity of the injury to a degree.
Right.
So you can, even on an unintentional foul, you still have to even out the fight and you can issue a 1-point deduction on the scorecards. And you could do that on an intentional foul as well. But the rule reads that if a foul is an intentional foul with injury, keywords, with injury, then it shall be 2-point deductions. Not it can be.
Right.
It shall be. Those words are very specific in the unified rules of mixed martial arts. If an intentional foul is delivered with injury, then it shall be a 2-point deduction. This was clearly an intentional foul. There was clearly an injury by it, the laceration, the blood, the going down, holding my head. Therefore, automatic 2-point. Marc did correct in that regard right then and there.
Nailed it. Yeah, no question whatsoever. I love the explanation of it because you're going back to the actual definition and the rules and exactly that. Knowing that you're a licensed referee, knowing that you're doing it at the highest level. Love that insight. Obviously, me just as a longtime observer of the sport, when he gave 2 points, zero question for me whatsoever. Spot on call by Marc Goddard. 2-point deduction, automatic.
Well,
the rest of it,
I want to bring this back to 2 weeks ago. If you guys have watched the Dana White Contender Series, there was an intentional foul, a clear intentional foul, right? Jason Herzog was the referee. I don't recall the names of the fighters, but one fighter was on top in a half guard, and he clearly reared his head back and boom, delivered a headbutt to the grounded fighter. It was they were already down. He reared back, then came forward. It was a clear intentional foul.
Right.
But Jason Herzog only deducted 1 point.
Because no serious injury.
Correct.
Yeah.
Therefore, it doesn't have to be a 2-point, because if you can prove injury, which we saw the injury, then it shall being the key word. And this no clear injury. So he decided 1 because he didn't think it overly changed the whole complexion of the fight. This
agreed.
Did it, and it would,
100%.
even though he's getting beat down prior to. But so that's the differences, and that's why there's 2 points.
Yep, 100% spot on there. Now, here's the thing: so I think the 2 points is 100% warranted, and as I said, not only warranted but actually called for in the rules. So it's right. Here's the thing about it, though, that I was curious as well, because the 2 points is assessed, and then we go back to fighting. And 45 seconds later, the fight's over, and Kiefer Crosbie has lost via TKO. Now, you set it up perfectly in that Nueraji was doing damage already, even before the foul, right? He was in complete control of this fight from the jump and at the moment of the foul, right? Mm-hmm. But when it's called off as a TKO 45 seconds later, it just felt a little bit unjust. You know what I mean? It just felt like, I know the flow of the fight didn't get changed in that moment. It didn't. The flow of the fight stayed where the flow of the fight was. So if you're looking at it from, did this incident impact? No, but it just still felt a little bit like, like the guy got caught in the head with an illegal knee, and on the restart 45 seconds later, he's done. And I just wondered if maybe there was, because we got about 1 minute and 8 seconds of stoppage time when we know we're allowed up to 5. And I believe, and you can speak to the rules on this, I believe that the difference is because we've seen this a million times. A groin shot, there's no way in the cage to assess the groin. So basically the rule reads there that it's the fighter's discretion, right? The fighter has up to 5 minutes, and rarely do they take the full 5 minutes. But because there's no way to inspect it and to ensure what's going on, it's the fighter's discretion. In all other incidents, I should take that back because the eye poke now is at discretion as well, right? But in the other incidents, it's kind of the referee and the doctor that have to make the decision there, right? It's not the fighter.
I'm not so sure that the eye poke really is, though. Like, it's a lot of it's still based on doctor, but
right.
So you're laying this out really good, right?
Yep.
And we got to kind of let's apply it here, right?
Yes.
This is a tough spot for a referee, and I've got a lot of problems. I have a lot of problems with what happened, but I don't have any real problem with Marc Goddard. Like, he was mechanical in what he did, and Marc Goddard, more than anybody, knows exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. All right. Was it very fast? Hell yeah, it was very fast.
Let me give you this, and maybe you can talk about, because I agree with you. Marc mechanically, Marc's going to handle every situation mechanically perfect, right? Like he's in there. He's at the highest level. I timed it out, okay? So it's 27 seconds from the start of the foul before the doctor is in there taking a look. 7 seconds later, the doctor turns. So Marc says, come in. I need you to check the fighter. I need you to check the fighter, make sure he's okay. The doctor takes 7 seconds before he turns around to look. Now, Marc has walked off at this point, right? Because he's trying to buy some time, right? He's doing the professional referee. Let me give you some time. I'm going to get out of here so you can have as much time as you need. And in 7 seconds, the doctor turns around to find Marc. Marc walks back. It's now 12 seconds later. So 12 seconds from the time the doctor's in, he says, this is good. But that all he looked at is the cut itself. And to me, I feel like there should have been more of a concussion type protocol in this situation. Like, the doctor just looked at, and if all you're doing is looking at the cut, it's under the eye. I'm not seeing bone. It's fine. But to me, the doctor should be taking a little bit more. And I don't know if
that's where I got this whole problem. That's why I said I got a lot of problems with it. I 110% agree with you.
I feel like the doctor should have been taking more of a concussion type protocol of like, hey,
what kind of language barrier is there?
Now he was, and again, we are in China, but I will give him the benefit of that. He was speaking in English, but I do worry about anytime you're in a foreign country, you wonder if the language barrier. But he did say he was speaking in English. He said this is good. But to me, and that's where like I kind of feel bad for Marc. Like, I wish Marc, and you can speak this more because you've been in the situation. I'm just from the outside looking in. I wish Marc could have given him more time. We've seen it, right? Where you walk over to the commission, you talk to the other fighter, all these things that you do that really you're just buying the guy time, right? Like, you don't really need to do it. You're buying the guy time. But I feel like Marc tried, but that doctor having only like a 4-second assessment and saying he's good, I feel like it kind of put Marc in a tough situation. And at that point, he can't just sit there and buy more time. He's not allowed to be like, do you need a little more time, Kiefer? It's either you can continue to fight or you can't continue to fight. And so I feel like the doctor kind of hosed Marc a little bit. I hate to be hard because I don't know how many fights that doctor has been in. I don't know how much training he had.
I don't think anybody – I do think the doctor did wrong, right? I never saw like, hey, calm down. Are we here? Right. Like I every time I've ever stopped a fight for the doctor to come in and look at somebody from an illegal blow to the head, they literally are in there at least like, all right, how's our vision? How's our this? How's our that? Right? They have at least a protocol in their head that they're going through.
What day is it? Where are you? Right? I mean, the concussion type questions, right?
In this situation, Marc obviously calls timeout right away. He admonishes the guy right away. Over there, that was He actually said it. That was that was egregious.
That was great.
And then assessing the severity of the injured fighter, Marc says, "Can you stand up?"
Right.
Good. You could stand up, walk over here to a neutral corner. Doctor, I need to see you. Which was it. And that happened very fast. The doctor coming in, I did not see an assessment. I just didn't see one.
I agree.
And you brought up the point yesterday to me is like, hey, on an illegal strike, they can treat the cut. Like, yeah, technically, yeah, but in the position that it was, there was no need to do it.
There was no need, right? It wasn't going into the eye. So it's like, why? Because you can bring the cut man in. That's part of the new rules too, but it's not necessary at that point.
Right. Now, would I have liked to see Marc go this, that, and the other? Like, maybe. I don't know, because what I did see is like, this is all subjective in nature, right? It's 100% subjectivity. Fighter got fouled. Fighter immediately starts complaining to Marc Goddard, which is going to indicate that to one level of degree, you are cognitively aware, because he's starting to argue right off the bat with Marc Goddard. Marc Goddard at that point stands him up, walks him to the corner. He can clearly walk to the corner. The doc, and then he says, "Do you want to continue fighting?" Yes. Doctor, look at him. Doctor, is he good? Yes. You need to watch your shots a little bit better. All right. Now, doctor, he's good? Okay.
Yeah.
It was very fast, but like the mechanical aspect of it, it all happened, right? And now I think hindsight being 2020, maybe take a little bit longer just in the quick nature of the finish. But looking at it, I don't believe to have been concussed by the nature of the shot here.
I agree.
But I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but that's the reason we have doctors. We brought in the doctor. And the doctor said, and I say this in my rules meetings all the time, listen, guys, if there's an illegal shot and then I bring in the doctor and you're conversing with the doctor and you tell the doctor that you are good to go, and then the doctor tells me that you are good to go, then I confirm it with you that you are good to go. Guess what? We're going.
Yeah.
We're not writing out the time anymore. Everybody agreed that we were good to go. So by the nature of it, Marc did nothing wrong. He was textbook in it. I think optically it was so fast that people were like, you didn't give him time to recover. Well, one, he didn't ask for time to recover either. So let's just be completely transparent about what we're talking about here.
Yeah, 100%. And again, and I want to make
dance didn't happen. You're right. The song and dance didn't really happen.
that's why I would see. Look, we just try to look at things. I don't think it was handled wrong here. And again, I want to point out it didn't change the flow of the fight. You know what I mean? Like it just didn't. But it just felt a little bad afterwards. And so I wish there would have been a little more song and dance going on. But I think the doctor, I had to laugh when you said I'm not a doctor, because I'm also not a doctor. But if all I have to do is walk in a cage and say, he's good, I'll be a doctor. You know what I mean? That's it. So it was unfortunate. But
I know when a fight is going to get stopped by a cut. I've done enough of them. I don't even need the doctor for that. But blunt force trauma to the head, hell yeah, I need a doctor. I want that off of me as fast as possible.
Yeah, and I wish the doctor would have given him more of an assessment, because I feel like all he did was visually inspect the cut, not go through like the concussion type protocol. But to your point, I mean, it did seem that like Kiefer was there and with it and wasn't complaining vehemently. And I know Marc does a good job of like always making sure of not discussing what's going to happen. And that's important too, because the fighter's trying to lobby. Are you going to take a point? Are you going to take 2 points? Like, is that a DQ? Like, no. That doesn't go into the decision making. I'll make that decision. I just need to know if you're physically okay and you want to continue to fight, because that's how I'm going to make my decision. You do not need to influence my decision or try to impact my decision. And so Marc does a great job of taking control.
And let's be clear about what we're saying here, right? In what scenario would a fighter say he's okay? The doctor say he's okay. The fighter saying he wants to fight more. The doctor saying he can fight still. And then the ref said, no, it's a disqualification. There's like no scenario in which that would happen.
100%. 100%. So Unfortunate. It's always good. I like breaking down the mechanics of it with somebody that has some expertise in it, because you've gone through the training, you've gone through the certification, and you've done it.
And
in
unfortunately,
live
I've been
fire.
in that scenario way too many times.
Yeah, right. Exactly. You've had to deal with it. So I thought it was great to talk about.
Unfortunate in circumstance in Shanghai, but fortunate circumstances this coming weekend. CFFC, tell us all about it.
I'm telling you what right now, man, a great card. Originally he was supposed to have Kyle Daukaus in the headlining role, but he got the call to Shanghai and he got his performance bonus. But it worked out pretty cool because you got Richie Lewis against Benny Orozco in the main event. Richie Lewis is actually a standout wrestler. He was an under 23 world champion, D1 wrestler from New Jersey, but has never had a chance in his MMA career to compete in New Jersey. So now he's making a CFFC debut. He's fighting his home state for the first time, and he's in the headlining role. Meanwhile, he's facing Benny Orozco, who's 5-1 from California, submission ace. And now, obviously, he's excited to be in the headliner as well. So a huge opportunity for him on Fight Pass. So 2 lightweights, non-title fight, but big stakes and big opportunity for both of them. So that'll be great. Nick Galante and Ty Guerrero, 185-pound co-main event. Title implications there. Obviously, Kyle Daukaus was our champion. We've got an interim champion, Chris Brown, and Guram Gokashvili, who are fighting later next month. But obviously, somebody here could be a number one contender.
Is that Four Bears?
That'll be a Four Bears. Yep. That'll be a Four Bears. So I will see you up there in North Dakota. Buserman Jumagul, Joshua Sierra, great welterweight matchup there as well. So fantastic. 13 fights. Dean Thomas on the mic with me. Morgan Worth is back as well, all at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. Love that property. Actually bringing my wife and kid with me out there as well, so they can see the boardwalk during the summer before it shuts down for the year, and kind of enjoy that last little bit of summer. My kid's already back in school, but hey, man, I'm the parent. I made the call. I'm taking out of school for a couple days so you can come hang out on the boardwalk in Atlantic City.
I love everything about that. Well, good stuff.
Yes,
hey, I thought this was a phenomenal episode. Rajah Jackson, let's wait and see what happens, but I don't see a scenario where he's not held accountable for this. Knokx Pro Wrestling, wait and see. I think there's going to be some civil liabilities there for sure. And special thanks to Dustin Five Starr, trainer, promoter, and owner of Memphis Wrestling, to come in and break it down a little insight. With that being said, for John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.